G'day guys, welcome to another episode of HashItOut. I'm joined once again by Armeanio and Noah. Welcome, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to be back.
Yeah, we've missed you last week. How was your time away?
I was good. Ready to jump back in.
Always good to go away and refresh and recharge and dive back into the ecosystem head first.
Yep, we got a fun one today.
So, speaking of diving in, we're diving head first into NFTs. So there's a number of different use cases, both utility-wise and then also the speculative sort of aspect in regards to crypto dick buck pictures, for instance, on different chains, and what we've got in our sort of ecosystem going on. I've got some listed, printed up behind me, actually. So let's dive into NFTs.
All right, non fungible tokens. Yeah, you can start on like a normie perspective. A lot of things that you interact with in life have a unique identifier. Whether it's the serial number, your social security number, your driver's license. And usually there is some use in calling that information, right? Let's say you, I don't know, have a computer, it breaks. Usually that identifier will give them some mechanism to say, okay, is it under warranty? Is it not under warranty? Your identity, potentially says who you are and, kind of provides a proof of something. And so there is a huge potential use case in terms of saying, okay, well, of these unique identifiers that we interact with in physical reality, which ones make sense to put on a unstoppable network? Now there's cost to consider there. So, for some businesses, having a centralized solution probably makes more sense. But then you also have the potential where, putting on a network that, is going to potentially, store it for a long period of time, may have its benefits. So it's kind of an interesting, potential use case once you get away from the dick butts. But that's where we are today.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I think a lot of people don't really understand how NFTs in their current sort of in their current phase. Yeah. A lot of people don't really understand how it works, and they just think the picture is on the blockchain or something like that, the ape or the dick butt or whatever it is. Yep. But it's not really how it works, right? It's like it's a token that's been minted, and then there's in the metadata there's a picture, like a link to a picture. Yeah, and it could be a Google Drive link, or it could be IPFS, or whatever it might be, and then all of the tools on in the ecosystem are able to parse that information and display the picture. But I know there's sometimes you can have on-chain artwork with like SVGs and things like that, but yeah, I like the pictures for the most part, it's just a link attached to a token, and I don't think people really get that. Like it's kind of absurd when you think of the amount of value that is tied up in tokens that are just links to other places. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, most definitely. That's cool. Just obviously with the size restrictions and things like that about what you can actually post on chain, there's some utility that there's some picture NFTs that actually sort of posted on chain, but yeah, for the most part, the graphics and the image sizes are stored on themselves are stored on IPFS, and then like you said, it's just linked to there. It's an interesting sort of concept and mindset, because what's at value? Is it the picture or the image itself, or is it the string or the identifier itself? What's your take on that?
I think that it has to do with brand perception, at least in its current state, where, someone will buy like a Louis Vuitton purse, right? And I don't have no idea how much that costs. To be honest, I'm not a.
You're not a purse collector.
Yeah,
I'd
I'm
never
not a
have guessed that.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but like the actual utility of it is probably no different than a cheap purse in terms of
Yeah.
like what it does, right? But there's certain brand association that humans have just always been fascinated with, and they tend to congregate around. So, I mean, that's kind of where we are now. Why dick butts? I have no, that's like a whole nother question of like, why does the crypto community go to space monkeys and dick butts? I have no idea, but um, I think that's like the current state of play is it's brand awareness. So, you do have some quite good artists that are able to build community and kind of their own brand, and so then it creates value, I guess. I don't know. I've never been someone that's like, what's the subjective value of art and branding, and that's not like my expertise, but I can say that's probably what it is for now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a spectrum of things. It's brand, like you're talking about, community, like you also said. There's, I think, status, which kind of ties into the brand that you're talking about. Like Bored Apes have become such a symbol of status, even in like normie culture. Like it's stupid to say that, but like lots of celebrities have Bored Apes now, and it's become this huge cultural phenomenon. Where if you have a Bored Ape, you're somehow part of the upper echelon of culture or something. I don't know.
Is maybe a little burnt in that area, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
But
I know that Bored Ape Yacht Club went mainstream is when I actually got a text from my wife asking me what it was. And then so I had to explain. And once she heard about it and was asking about it, I'm like, yeah, it's gone mainstream.
Yeah, I think it's status. I think it's obviously speculation. People, they want to get in early, and I think there's a lot of fake community building that just revolves around trying to pump people's own bags, and but I think there is genuine community as well. Like in our community, we have some really small, cool artists, like some of the ones above you, CW. Yep. We've got Ergnomes and Glezcon, and I think Sigma Village is up there too.
Yep. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, there's real community, and
it's just like anything. I think it gives someone a purpose and someone to identify with as well. Like it ties into the community, the brand awareness, and then ultimately the status symbol as well. So you see people obviously proud to display these images as their profile pictures. They think that's something to be proud of and be sort of tie into that community aspect as well. I think it's on the Ergo side, we're a reasonably small chain, I think, at this stage, and in regards to the community as well. So I think that community is still really tight knit, and even you look at, say, for instance, the Ergnome artist Funiculum. He's sort of jumping in and out of different NFT projects and commenting on their artwork and all kinds of things like that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, like building a brand is not a negative thing, right? It's just a matter of like, what does it represent? What is the community value around that? But really, that's early stage in terms of like technical potential, let's say, of NFTs. If you were, I kind of went back to like the unique identifier. Well, one unique identifier that most people are familiar with is a key. It unlocks something, right? That's a pretty basic thing, but then it's a matter of saying, okay, so you have potential access control. How can that be built out in a way that, brings value? There's a ton, like ticketing is a form of access control. And how many people have bought a ticket for a plane or a concert or something like that. And, potentially, let's say I started a band, which is probably never going to happen. And I said, okay, I'm going to throw a concert and you two show up and you're the only two. And, in order to get in, you have to like scan an NFT ticket Well, it can also act as like a beacon, to where I could potentially connect with you two in the future, or whoever holds that NFT in your wallet, and have some mechanism of like connecting with my audience, right? So there is also like the access control, and then there's also kind of the callback, that both, potentially could have interesting business use cases built around them.
Yeah, that's one of the most sort of low-lying fruit, I think, is the ticketing system for NFTs. Just being able to rock up to a concert gate, scan a QR code, and that verifies everything, and then you're granted entry. I think that's a really simple use case.
Yeah.
I guess something, maybe I'm just uneducated, but something I think about with ticketing or any other kind of like real world application for NFTs is, how what is the bridge between real life and the NFTs on whatever blockchain they may be on? Doesn't there have to be some sort of intermediary that is determining if it's legitimate or not in a really decentralized system? It seems near impossible. Like to me, it almost seems like the systems we currently have may be more efficient for those kinds of use cases.
Yeah, and that's ultimately like the barrier here, right? And I think to some degree, people forget that inefficiencies in systems are sometimes profitable, right? Like if say medical records as an example. Let's say Noah breaks his leg, he comes to my office, I give him an X-ray, and then I lose it, right?
Well, his leg or the X-ray?
Well, maybe that's his leg, but how many things are double charged or misplaced, and sometimes there's an economic incentive like behind efficiency, where you could use the example of like I don't know, sometimes when you pay people hourly, they have a different work ethic than if you pay them piecework, as an example, right? Sometimes like inefficiencies basically create profit. So that's like a barrier that I think some of the higher level ideas are going to run into. And let's take identity as an example. I know there's a lot of people that love the concept of decentralized identity, but there's also a ton of complexity there that people aren't looking at. Like if somebody hacks my wallet and I have my decentralized identity and social security and credit history, who do I go to for like let's say getting that back, recovering that, burning the old one? That's very hard to enforce in a decentralized system. And then you have to ask the question, well, if I wanted to, why could I not just like pretend I was hacked and then go do some random things and then say, hey, I need my money back, I was hacked, and my identity back? Like there's a ton of complexity there that really hasn't been sorted out. It's not to say that it can't be, but there's a reason why it's not the primary form of identity today, and we're still in the dick butt phase.
It's unfortunate. Well, it's not unfortunate. We're just extremely early, I think, and there's also all this stuff to iron out. That example you just gave is pretty interesting as well, because what's to stop? Like, say I get a hold of your wallet, your identity, I can go and run off and take out loans and things like that. That's legitimate. On the flip side of that, you could just go out there and go and take out $1 million loan, just using your identity, say that it's stolen, launder the funds somehow, and then ultimately burn that address. The money's already sort of disappeared, and then you just remint your new decentralized ID. So, and then obviously the legalities behind that, who's the central entity to actually mint and recover those sort of things. It's an interesting concept.
it's hard to get rid of that third party.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, I think most people really don't appreciate how much in their reality is dependent on like a third party that is going to have some policy in place for, you know, if something bad happens or if they screw up. And when you get into like an actually decentralized system, it's very difficult to try to recreate that type of support structure without having someone in control.
Yeah.
And so to some degree, I would say like that's like the high level question that really needs to be addressed, looked at, and maybe it's a solvable problem. You know, maybe it's not a solvable problem. I don't know. I'm not the one that's going to solve it. But if you want to get into like the really advanced real world use cases, you have to look at the complexity in the system that already exists and then say, how can we replicate that in some way? Otherwise, you know, it's just going to create problems.
Yeah, as far as the third party issue, something that I've seen, I think it was on Ethereum with decentralized IDs is, and again, this is all super early, like people have not even begun to figure this stuff out. It's all in flux still, but people are there's a group, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a group trying to find ways to incentivize community support. You know, things like sort of like what we're trying to do with the Sigmanauts, like you know, whether it's being on Reddit and answering questions, or Telegram, or, you know, writing an article, or whatever it may be, like trying to create decentralized structured incentives so that those kinds of third party situations operate in such a way that there's a decentralized network of people to act as that third party. But like you said, it's very hard to do, and
yeah, it's like
not even close yet.
And that's actually like a really, really important distinction to make, because, you know, sometimes with marketing words, I think that like the meaning of things get lost. So, you know, a DAO is trust distribution. I would not call that really decentralized, because you still have some collective entity, you know,
Right.
with power. It's just within that it's distributed, which is better than having like one guy, right? But yeah, that is a big open question, you know, and that's part of the reason why you know, a lot of the higher level use cases, I would say, are still somewhat theoretical. We don't really see them implemented. Now, you know, if somebody can, you know, let's say solve that in an efficient way, there's a huge business use case behind a lot of different ideas, but it's just a matter of getting there in a way that doesn't require that third party, which is hard. You know, it's like in true DeFi, a lot of the times what you have to put up is collateral, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the third party, is you have to, you know, collateralize your loan, so if you make a mistake, there's some repayment.
And then alongside of that also goes the sort of disruptive nature of this technology as well, by sort of stepping or sidestepping that intermediary as well, because ultimately that's their business, that's their use case. They're going to be holding on to that sort of power as much as possible. So it's kind of one of those scenarios where it's, you sort of integrate this technology or you sort of get burned by it because you haven't evolved. The use cases, I think, are pretty significant, especially into sort of land titles and bits and pieces. I think tokenizing real estate, especially commercial real estate, I can see a huge upside in that. But then just the sort of general land title itself, being able to transfer ownership of property A to property B, I think that's huge.
Yeah, you know, I've gotten asked that. I think it was in the Twitter group. They're like, "Hey, what do you think about tokenizing real estate?" And I was like, "Listen, in my area, we still use township meets and found."
Yeah.
From way back when. We don't have like GPS coordinates on properties. We don't have efficient systems. We have systems that are inefficient as hell. But all along the way, there's people that benefit from that inefficiency, right? You got the surveyor, you got the real estate lawyer, you have, a ton of people that kind of built around the system that was, built around shitty technology. And so now their livelihood, how they put food on their family's table is because they built around a system that was inefficient. And it's like, okay, well, if we change it, what do we do with them, right? So it's hard to disrupt things without
treading on some toes.
That's like the whole automation conversation. That's a whole other conversation. But change doesn't happen quickly. People don't like change. Usually change makes things difficult for people.
Yeah, for the end user though. So say I'm purchasing a property from you, Noah. I can we can go to an escrow service or something like that. I can transfer the tokens for payment. You can transfer the title once the conditions of the contract are met. Then it's distributed. Now I take ownership of the land title and of the property title, and now that's mine. Like how efficient is that? You know what I mean? But obviously,
but what if I don't leave?
Well, mate, we got other problems.
No, but that's good. That's my point though about what I said earlier. Like, for that to work, there has to be full buy-in from everybody involved, and there has to be some sort of fail-safe or safety net for if I don't leave, then what happens? Is there like a decentralized police force or something? Like what's going to happen?
There'll be a centralized CW force.
There you go. I think it's a legitimate concern though for something like tokenized real estate to really actually not just be a gimmick. It's like there's got to be a lot of infrastructure there.
It's hard. Like what happens if okay, you guys have a nice escrow swap, and then I hack you both, right?
Exactly.
Now I have your title, right? Then what?
That's true.
It's like, sorry, it's my house now.
Exactly. Well, exactly. In theory, it is because you have ownership of the title or possession of the title.
Yeah. So it's very, there's a lot of complexity that I think will just take time to work out, and then there will be some use cases that make sense, and there will be some use cases that just don't. We have to kind of march forward there. Now, what is like the potential benefits is you have like hyper liquidity in assets potentially, where you can buy, sell, trade, transfer things around. Basically the speed of blocks, depending on the network. But
it's super, super attractive and super sexy to be able to, use your house as collateral in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
dangerous, straight into night out.
Then you get into, the situation where you have so many third parties in this world that people don't even recognize or appreciate. Now, does the bureaucracy of many of them create extreme inefficiencies? Absolutely, right? And some of them are just built around shitty systems, like that. They're there to support a shitty system. Like you can say township range meets and bounds is probably a little bit outdated since we have satellites and GPS coordinates and all of that. But sell that to a lot of the existing powers, it might create a problem. I think that same scenario exists in multiple places, but it's hard to challenge entrenched powers.
Yeah. One use case I think is inevitable in the near future actually is the tracking of goods and services. So obviously on the supply chain route, you can track product from basically picking or something, say it's a bottling of a wine or something along those lines, and follow the process all the way through to the table it's sitting on, being able to scan a QR code. You can see the route it's taken. I think that's a pretty cool a use case, I think, for NFTs in this near future.
It has brand value. I think something like that for like high value commodity, items, that type of thing is really useful. People will like that. Like the average person that just got off work and wants to eat something, I don't think they'll care. To be honest, I think it'll be something, sometimes people want to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people just don't. They just want to, have utility. So
something that I was just thinking about, back to the real estate thing, is let's say you can tokenize a piece of real estate and, super liquid. You could use it as collateral if you wanted to. If houses become so liquid that they can be traded in seconds, what does that do to, house insurance or like property insurance? Like, that's a whole other layer of complexity. If somebody,
that's a whole other layer of data complexity that we don't even want to goes into.
If somebody's going to be trading or putting their house as collateral for like risky loans, what does that do to the insurance costs of that? Like, who knows?
Yeah, I mean there are both like huge potentially positive use cases and huge potentially negative. Like you could pool money between a group of people and say, okay, we're going to pay off, CW's house first, and then my house, and then Noah's house, and then we're all, like free and happy. Yeah. But then you also have, what Noah's getting into, and just like the potential nonsense and complexity involved. A lot of people don't ask those questions, but that's why we don't see these systems. That's a big part of why. If somebody had actually solved that, and it was performant and made sense, we'd probably see it, but we're not there yet. We're not even, still in the dick butt phase. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look at the potential use cases that are really sexy and use that as, fodder for a bull run. just trying to get excited about something that people are shoveling their money into. Not to say that those use cases are illegitimate, but I think a lot of the time people get excited about things that maybe they shouldn't be excited about.
Ideas are always easy, and then you take it into reality and you get kicked in the teeth. Welcome to life.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
That's always the case. It's always easy in the head, and a lot of the times, marketing stuff is, more head oriented and excited and oriented. And reality is just more complicated. It's more complex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in regards to sort of the DeFi side of things, we see NFTs sort of thrown around as like staking keys and whatnot. What sort of utility can we see on the DeFi front?
A lot of potential use cases. You could get into like the potential for, NFTs, sometimes even fractionalized NFTs that represent like dApps, and then you get into profit distribution, which kind of takes you into a fuzzy, like legal area.
Security area, yeah.
Like that is one huge use case for NFTs, is like security, infrastructure for reward distribution and that type of thing. But that's kind of shady right now. It still happens every once in a while in different ecosystems, but usually they're small projects. But that is one potential unique use case.
Something I've seen too is like, which I don't necessarily love this idea, but having different kinds of NFTs that provide different sort of yield bonuses and things like that in DeFi. That just kind of, I don't know, that strikes me as like the degen DeFi, that it doesn't really represent anything close to real world finance. Like,
no, it reminds me of like like credit card colors. Like, oh, you're the Diamond Club.
Exactly, dude.
The loyalty program, like the shopping loyalty things, and
There maybe is some real world use case for it, but a lot of that is just customer retention, and then different levels of service.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know why that same intent would work in the situation that Noah's talking about, customer retention and different tiers of service. Now maybe there's like a DEX that says, hey, if you trade to a certain amount, we're going to give you an NFT that if you keep it in your wallet, we'll give you a lower fee rate or something. Maybe there's some use case there, but I'm not aware of it. But a lot of it is just, it's like you get more rewards.
Yeah, number go up.
Yeah, it's hard to like bootstrap real economic use cases, and sometimes you get things that really don't make sense outside of crypto world.
Yeah, well, it's like all of the things that we currently have that are usable kind of just get like cobbled together into like whatever we can possibly squeeze out of these technologies in their current state. And that's how we get the weird NFT yield boosting Discord DAO governance token. Like it's just such a weird yeah, it's just so strange, and it's like it's so limited to just the crypto space because it doesn't reflect real world use cases at all yet.
Yeah, I think
it's like the limitations of the space are what creates the culture of the space almost.
Yeah, my most interesting NFT is probably the SigUSD governance key.
Yeah,
that has no value. I'll hopefully burn it. But in terms of like the utility of it,
I was about to say the value itself could be sort of on that speculative front if someone does take those keys and they've got the condition or the access to the bank itself. But in and on itself, it's just another token on the blockchain. But the utility it's got there, it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's potentially big where it could move around the NFT contract. But then that's where I was getting into like decentralized securities, to where like if the three of us created a DApp together and we were say, okay, well, how do we distribute funds for something that we jointly built, and how do we have some sort of governance to update it? NFTs are actually kind of a unique use case there in terms of fee distribution and like key governance access.
Bringing all this back, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but then you get into like security land, and what is the SEC gonna say? Gary Gensler, I don't know,
all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say, bringing it back to Ergo with storage rent, NFTs kind of become a little bit interesting. Like using your SigUSD key as an example. If you happened to, die tomorrow, some miner might end up with a governance token for SigUSD.
I'll probably burn it before I die.
So it's just a matter of sort of tying, like, say one ERG in the box with your NFT, for instance. So then you can actually pay for the box for, I think it's 32 years roughly, thereabouts, for someone to chew away at, or for the miners to chew away at that box. So then that sort of locks up that NFT for that amount of time. That's pretty significant. 2 ERG, that's a lot, or basically a lifetime. That's going to see us out anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's going to be interesting, especially with storage rent, where you're going to have a decade from now, which projects, communities, or let's call them brands, right? Not even an NFT, which brands are going to be popular. And, if you look at like cultural trends over time, there's brands that 20 years ago that were quite popular in the mainstream that, people would pay for and, promote for some social status or whatever. And then where are they today? Besides from like the used clothes store or whatever.
Well, that's an interesting sort of topic as well, is antiques. Will
Yeah.
NFTs be considered antiques at some stage?
The
vintage crypto tick butts.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into like collectibles, that is like some aspect of the current NFTs is like rarity, and you do kind of get like a mix of branding and collectability and social status, and I don't know. It's a strange animal sometimes, but I do think that if you look outside of blockchain, you do have a pretty large market around unique collectibles or antiques, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like there's a unique identifier there. The question is, what does it represent or mean? And then you get back to the subjective value of art, right? I went to the Louvre in Paris once, and there was like a picture that looked like somebody dipped a mop in paint and just like did that, and lots of people were impressed, and I didn't get it, but that's life sometimes.
That's the subjectivity about art, and that's the beauty of it, I guess.
Yeah, if somebody wants to pay and somebody wants to sell, let them have at it, I guess. I mean, it's not my business.
That's it. That's the market. So I think we've sort of dived into numerous sort of aspects in regards to NFTs and some current use cases, some future use cases. Is there any last words you guys want to have any comments on in regards to NFTs at this stage?
Yeah, I got one. One last thing that I was thinking about is, and that I think could actually be implemented in the current state of NFTs is, and I know some projects are actually doing this, the idea of like having a digital will that is an NFT with some sort of inheritance smart contract, so you can lock your assets, and the will, it represents some kind of inheritance transaction structure. I think that's a pretty cool use case.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing could probably be done with like even savings accounts as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just have like sort of time lock, or even sort of like just a dead man switch as well. That could be a simple use case in regards to not having to have a third party then, like, or an Oracle service basically putting something on chain to be able to trigger the event to disperse those goods. I think that could be an interesting sort of concept, obviously, also.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how it plays out. In a lot of the complex use cases, it just breaks down to that third party and how do you potentially replace it in an actually decentralized way. And that's often a very complicated question, considering all of the different ways people can get into trouble.
And then obviously on the flip side of that, the people holding on or trying to hold on to the power are there as well.
Yeah, so it's something to think about. I know there's a lot of shiny marketing in this space, but in terms of like actual technological solutions in an actually decentralized or well enough distributed way that you don't have to rely on a third party, it's hard. And that's actually part of why Bitcoin was such a disruptive technology. Is that it actually did that well. Argo, I think brings some small contracts to the table, but when you get into those really high level use cases, there's usually a ton of complexity that people aren't looking at.
Yeah, just something to work through, and obviously follow in the industry as people start to put their minds together and figure all this out. It's interesting times ahead. All right, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to you about crypto dick butts and NFTs and tokenizing real estate and other bits and pieces. We'll look forward to chatting once again in the near future, next week, and take care and have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Catch up.